Hello music fans, this is What's New 2022 and I'm going to talk about 4 albums that came out on June 24th in my order of preference. The first one I'm going to talk about is Porcupine Tree with their album Closure Continuation. This is their 11th album, but it's been 13 years since the last one. They're a legendary progressive rock band, and this is in contention for album of the year so far for me. It's really good. I love the bass lines on this album, played by Steven Wilson, who also plays the guitars and sings lead vocals. The drums by Gavin are great. The keyboards by Richard are also great. There's soft acoustic moments, but also some heavy metal riffs, lots of odd time signature parts. My favorite track after the first few listens is Rat's Return, which is probably the heaviest guitar riff on the album. It almost reminds me of like an Opeth guitar riff, but has a nice kind of eerie, softer verse, and then this heavy riff that is really great. And this is probably in my top 4 favorite Porcupine Tree albums of all time out of their big, solid catalog. I've done a Porcupine Tree ranking video with my friend Alon on the channel, so check that out if you're interested in my thoughts on their other albums. If I remember, maybe I'll put a link to it in this video. The second album that I'm going to talk about is by Coheed and Cambria, and it's called Vaxis 2, A Window of the Waking Mind. This is also progressive rock, but there's a lot of a very different sound from Porcupine Tree. This has more post-hardcore, some alternatives, some metal, but kind of like a pop-punk influence to it. It's very poppy. My favorite song on the first couple listens was either Ladders of Supremacy or Window of the Waking Mind. Those are kind of my top 2. And these are the more progressive songs on the album, I think, rather than the more poppy songs. But I also like the poppy songs. They're really catchy. If you liked Coheed and Cambria's last album, you'll probably like this, as it's very similar. There's even some repeated themes that appeared in the last album that are recurring in this one, some melodic themes. And I think it continues the story from the last one. And the third album that I'm going to talk about from June 24th is by the band Chaos Frame, and it's an album called Entropy. This is progressive metal. It's their 3rd album. This is a solid progressive metal release from a lesser known band. Great guitar work on here. I'm curious to hear their other releases. I haven't heard them. This is the first time I've heard this band, but they sound really solid, so I'm intrigued. And lastly, I'm going to talk about Alexisonfire with their album Otherness. This is post-hardcore, and it's their 5th album. This is another one where it's been 13 years since the last one, so maybe that's the magic number. Porcupine Tree waited 13 years, Alexisonfire waited 13 years. Both solid releases. Yeah, so this is a solid release from Alexisonfire. I know they've been inactive for a while. Yeah, I enjoyed it, just not as much as I enjoyed the other 3 that I mentioned. And that's it for today. Until next time, I'll have information on some new releases that are coming out next week. Some of the ones on my radar are The Deer Hunter, Greg Puciato, Derek Sherinian, Horizon Ignited, and Protector. So I'll be checking those out and seeing what I think of those. So stay tuned if you want to see my thoughts on those releases next week. Peace out.